Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. So in today's video we're talking about the food rationing and how ready are you for it. To some of you might think, well, this is never gonna happen. However guys, this video has been brought in by the article where we're currently seeing that it's actually been 900 days since the conflict started. 900 days, and it doesn't look like it's going to be ending anytime soon. At the same time, I also have seen that Germany now warned they are preparing for the conflict with the same country in the next 3 years, and they warn people about the conscription and food rationing. So the idea, for some of you might think, is a little bit far-fetched. It's potentially a little bit closer to us than you might think. So rather than me going in fear-mongering and saying this is what is going to happen, all we're going to do, guys, is to have a look at the items that have been rationed in the past and see what we can do to safeguard our families from that. In the end of the day, guys, the last rationing that happened lasted for 14 years. This is a very, very long time. So it is kind of really important to understand, know what's been happening and know what we can prepare for. So guys, without further ado, let's have a look. So the first item you probably aware, but the fuel was rationed. And I'm not going to go, guys, into the detail because, you know, preparing for fuel, it's a little bit harder. Yes, you can have some canisters of petrol or diesel stashed aside, especially if you have generators. But apart from that, unfortunately, it's very little we can do. So number 2 on the list was clothing. Clothing, unfortunately, was rationed because they needed the fabrics to make the parachutes and the uniforms. So those days, ladies learn how to sew. And to be fair, it is a very good thing to know how to do. I'm not saying we're going to get to the stage of a clothing being rationed, but I think as a prepper, it's very important just to have at least needle and a thread and a couple of other things. So in an emergency situation, guys, you're able to patch up, well, actually you have to learn how to be able to patch up clothing just in case. So next on the list, guys, it was meat. Meat, bacon, any kind of meat was rationed. So I have a book here that it is over 100 years old. And I wanted to let you know how bad the things were. This was from the World War I rationing. They had some rationing in World War I, but the majority of rationing came to in 1939, so World War II. However, the point is, with the meat, there was 2.5 pounds per head per week. So this was the raw with the bone and fat included. It included also the poultry, game, tinned meats, bacon, ham, sausages, kidneys, liver, etc. It's all counted as meat. However, suet or lard was not included. So as you can see, guys, here, this is pretty sad state of events. So as preparing for meat, guys, we know, right, as a preppers, we have to, well, the options we have is either buying frozen meat or buying those processed meat in the tins. In the end of the day, yes, they're not the healthiest, but in the end of the day, if you cannot live without meat for a very long time, it does give you that kind of savory, you know, pleasant thing that people seek from eating meat. Yes, I cannot compare this to the fresh meat, but nonetheless, the best we can do, guys, is either freeze some meat if we still have power, and of course, otherwise just buy some different tinned meats. So next thing, guys, we're talking about the cereals. In fact, we're talking about like bread and flour, as it is here on the list anyway, whilst I have this open. So it was allocated a £4 per head per week. This was equivalent whether it be a bread or a flour. At the same time, the rationing included scones and cakes too, so that was pretty bad. So anyway, you know, with the flour, guys, you either stock up on the whole grains, guys, that you can then mill yourself if you have ability to do so. Otherwise, stocking up flour is kind of sounds like a really good idea. I've been kind of pushing a bit more with my flour preparedness. I've not really been doing, like I said to you before, huge amount of flour, but I've started kind of picking up my pace of the flour. All I gotta do is just to put this in a Mylar bag with the oxygen absorbers, and it'll sit on my shelf for a very, very long time. So next thing was rationed was butter. It goes without saying. Again, it's very hard to prepare, and well, in terms of preparedness for butter, I know somebody said you can actually buy yourself a canned butter, like a dry butter, powdered butter, and I know this happens in America, guys. You can buy this, which is absolutely brilliant. Option for us in UK, we can either import this from America, or you know, you can freeze butter again if we have an access to the freezers and everything, still a-okay. Otherwise, it's other shelf-stable fats that we can have just in case the butter is not available. I've done a whole video on a healthy fats and all the fats that can sit on your shelf for indefinitely, pretty much. So I'll put the link up there for video if you are interested. The next thing it was rationed is sugar, and we're talking about sugar in any other confectionaries as well. Sugar is important for many people, especially if you're kind of taking it in your, you know, coffees and teas, that kind of thing. I think if you do baking, if you do any kind of cakes or anything else like that, sugar is quite an important thing to have. Alongside as well, being a prepper, guys, sugar is a good butter item anyway. I don't personally like have sugar in my teas or coffees, but I do enjoy in brewing my own wines and beers and ciders, and unfortunately that requires quite a lot of sugar. So from that point, for myself, for my own purpose, I'm stocking up on sugar. Sugar is a very easy item to keep, guys. You can just keep this in your original packaging. All you have to do, just make sure it stays dry. Alternatively, you can just repackage that in a plastic container. You don't need to put oxygen absorber in there. It will be absolutely fine as it is for many, many years. Next thing, guys, is salt. Salt was also rationed at the time. At the moment, we have an array of salts available. A lot of them have their sort of pluses and minuses. Some of them have a lot of additives, which I try to stay away from. However, salt in general, people say, well, salt is not really good for us. It is not very good for us in big quantities. However, salt, it is very important to our health. So we do have to have salt in terms of having a proper hydration. So if you haven't stocked up on any salt, I strongly suggest you get some salt in your prepper pantry. Stay away from the salts that come in the paper little tabs. They are kind of okay, but value for money, guys, it lies in buying the slightly bigger bags, or you can buy even like a huge bags, like in places like Amazon or online places. I would also probably suggest to go more towards like a sea salt rather than a refined salt, but of course the choice is up to you. Next thing on the list is cheese. Yes, cheese was rationed as well as pretty much many other things. Again, in terms of cheese preparedness, it's very difficult. It is something, if we think about it, we can think, well, we can live without the cheese, right? It's not that big deal. But think about it, if you ration for like 10, 14 years, that's a pretty long time without having any cheesiness. So all the preps I can only think about, guys, we can buy some tubed cheese, but it doesn't unfortunately last that long. And we can buy powdered cheese that is actually rather good. You can buy them again many places, and with the proper storage in the Mylar bag and oxygen absorber, that will last you for a very long time too. Next thing on the list was eggs. It goes without saying, guys, you're allowed like 1 egg per person per week, which is really not a lot. As in terms of preparedness for that, guys, you either have your own chickens, but again, it's not a particularly good option for everybody. Otherwise, is you can buy freeze-dried eggs and import them, which is again really expensive, or you can dehydrate eggs. Again, I've done a video on dehydrating eggs and I put the myth to test whether they're best to do them raw or cooked. Again, the video is out there. It does take a long time. They don't really compare quality-wise to a fresh egg, obviously, but if this is something that you want to prep for, I strongly suggest you have a look at that video. And last but not least, guys, is tea and coffee more so than tea. Again, if you are a tea or coffee drinker, it's very important to be able to kind of stockpile your drinks. A freeze-dried coffee, which is the instant coffee, will last you indefinitely by itself, providing you keep it again in the nice airtight container away from the moisture. Again, tea bags will last you pretty much indefinitely as well. You don't have to do a huge deal. I have some tea bags, they'll sit in initial original packaging they came from. They're sat there for over 5 years past the date. It's nothing wrong with that, they're still absolutely fine. Again, you can make this choice and repackage the teas and coffees if you wanted to, but it's totally up to you. Just to mention, guys, pretty much everything has been rationed, whether it's been for a little term, for short term or a long term. I only just really picked up the main things that people really been concerned with. It's important to note that at the time then, they haven't rationed any fruits or vegetables, and they haven't actually encouraged people to grow. They've taken up public spaces and parks and created allotments to grow fruits and vegetables. And funnily enough, well, actually not that funnily enough, they were the healthiest nation at the time because people grew for Britain, or they was actually digging for Britain, and they ate more fruits and veg because all the things like meat and everything else and sugary things weren't really accessible. So that's the reason why they were obviously the healthy nation. And of course, in 2024, the rationing actually finished in 1954. So this July just gone, we actually celebrated 70 years from the end of rationing. So anyway, guys, if there's anything to take away from this video, I said I'm not scaremongering scaremongering you. I've just seen the articles there, and especially saying Germany, you know, thinking about the rationing. It is not something that's going to get implemented right away, but it just, I think it's very important to know how you can possibly deal with that. And of course, as a prepper, we all have the things, we're prepping for things like this, of course. The whole idea, we want to have our prepper pantry full of stuff. But again, when I'm looking back at the time and thinking the 900 days that the conflict has already been happening, okay, and the rationing at the time in the Second World War was for 14 years, this what really got me thinking and kind of made me to want to bring this video out to you. 14 years, you know, just imagine the, you know, preparing for that sort of length of time. It's pretty much probably nigh on impossible unless you have like millions and millions of pounds to be able to spend on, you know, space and food. But nonetheless, anyway guys, yes, the point was to you guys, just reevaluate your preps. If you got anything specifically out of that list that you maybe not kind of prepared, that's that. It's all I really wanted to do. So, well, thank you very much guys for watching. Thumbs up, maybe subscribe if you haven't, and I shall see you in the next video. Bye bye.